Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky made his first visit to Canada on Friday since Russia invaded his country. He gave a passionate address to Parliament and had a message for Canadians too.
Canada's support for Ukraine with weapons and equipment has allowed us to save thousands of lives. And I thank you, Canada, for being a real example of leadership and honesty for so many around the world, an example that inspires others to defend life.
Visit as an opportunity to announce more spending for Ukraine, another $650 million, bringing the total support from this country to $9.5 billion. Friday's visit also included bilateral meetings with ministers, including Ukraine's newly minted Defence Minister, who met with his Canadian counterpart. And I spoke with the Minister of National Defence, Bill Blair, this morning. Minister Blair, nice to see you this morning.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Good morning.
I want to start with Ukraine. The government, as you well know, promised an additional $650 million over 3 years on Friday. I wanted to ask you, though, why this shift to provide multi-year assistance to Ukraine, to make that promise over an extended period of time?
Well, one of the things that's been very clear, we have been endeavoring to respond to their immediate needs, and we are doing that with the provision of air defense systems and ammunition. But at the same time, in our conversations with them and working with our allies, we're also part of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. I met with them in Germany on Tuesday, and we're talking about the immediate needs, but we also recognize that in order to properly prepare, the Ukrainians need longer term commitments that respond to the needs that they've identified, and we're working very closely in that regard.
Part of what the president was doing, I think, in the U.S. and Canada was obviously to appeal for more aid, but also to sort of reassure people that the counteroffensive continues. There was some trouble in the U.S. from a number of Republicans who have concerns about the ongoing spending. We're seeing some problems in Poland now, with the Prime Minister there saying they will give the weapons they promised, but not more. How concerned are you about people losing the willingness to support Ukraine, or even just a little bit of fatigue in terms of the spending?
Well, Rosemary, I think every country in the world is experiencing the economic challenges that are almost a direct result of the war in Ukraine. The increase in gas prices, the increase in food prices is in many ways tied to that conflict, and countries are experiencing the challenges related to that. And at the same time, I think it was very clear. It was very clear in our parliament. It was very clear in our communities. The Canadians stand united and understand the need to continue to support Ukraine, because in many ways, Ukraine is fighting on all of our behalf. Ukraine is fighting to maintain and uphold the rules-based order. And I think all of our allies, certainly within all of the defense ministers that I met with on Tuesday, in our conversations with the United Kingdom and the United States in particular, there is a strong understanding that the fight that Ukraine is involved in against Russia to maintain the integrity of their borders is everyone's fight, and that's why we remain committed to it, and we will remain committed to it, for as our Prime Minister has said, as much as it takes, as long as it takes.
But I guess my question is, do you have concerns that other allies are wavering a little bit, and what responsibility does Canada have to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, there's going to be obviously different voices and concerns being expressed in different countries of the world, as there will in Canada. But at the same time, as I said, I have met with the defense ministers just as recently as Tuesday, and from all of the contributing nations, and I will tell you there was remarkable resolve and unity among all of them of doing what is required, and of course everyone is concerned naturally about the cost of this war. But we are all reminded that the Ukrainians are not only paying in money, but they're paying in blood, and they're dying on the battlefield, and in a very important struggle to uphold the rules of law and how nations deal with each other, and so we are united in support of them.
You mentioned the air defense system, NASAM. It was promised back in January, I think, was when the announcement was made. I don't believe it's been delivered yet. I wonder if you have any updates on how close you are to being able to actually get that to Ukraine.
Actually, I've been updated on it quite recently. We're working very closely. We were acquiring those systems from the United States. The United States is making some adjustments to that purchase in order to make sure that it's fit for purpose and serves the needs of Ukraine. I anticipate that and other systems will be delivered very shortly. In addition to that, by the way, Rosemary, last Sunday I announced that Canada is contributing $33 million to a consortium of nations led by the United Kingdom, again, to invest in air defense systems and munitions. And so that work is ongoing, and the Ukrainians have made it very clear how important it is, because they are facing significant threat from both missile attack, drone attack, and air superiority that the Russians have over their territory. And so those defense systems, it's been made very clear to us, are critically important.
A broader question in your still new portfolio, the defense review, Minister. It was promised, I think we're now up to 18 months ago. Obviously, you've just come into the job. When can we expect to see something concrete?
Well, we've been working apace on it, Rosemary, and you're right. My predecessor, Minister Anand, brought forward a proposal. We are working through that with the Finance Department, but there are many considerations in that. I just want to assure Canadians and our allies as well that defense policy update is being brought forward, and there are important decisions to be made. But we remain committed. The Prime Minister was very clear in stating Canada's commitment to work towards 2% of our GDP in defense spending. But it's not just about the amount you're spending. It's about creating capability. It's about investing in the right things. And most importantly, for me, it's also about investing in the people. It's the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, which are its true strength. And we've got work to do there as well.
Would you say by the end of the year, not to get hung up on the timeline here, but it has been a while that it's been a work in progress?
I will tell you, it's a matter of considerable urgency for me. I've had conversations with my cabinet colleagues and with the Prime Minister. I think we all understand the importance of bringing forward that update, but it's also important. We are working in a challenging economic environment, and I'm aware of that. But the defense policy update really it takes a longer term view of building up that capability that Canada needs. The Canadian Armed Forces have to provide that includes significant investments in platforms, planes, ships, helicopters, submarines, but it's a significant investment in our people, and all of those things are important, and all of them will bring forward as soon as they're ready to be brought forward.
Okay, a couple questions on India, if I can. We here at the CBC have reported that signals and communications were shared with Canada by our Five Eyes partners to help come to the place where the Prime Minister was comfortable to make those allegations last week about the Indian government being connected to the murder of a Sikh Canadian. The Americans are now saying that some of that information did come from them. What can you tell us about how important that information sharing or that piece from the Americans was or is to helping with this case?
Yeah, a couple of things here, Rosemary. First of all, we enjoy and we benefit tremendously from our Five Eyes partnership. Our relationship with the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand is critically important, and there is a fulsome sharing of intelligence in all matters that concern our alliance and our countries. And at the same time, Rosemary, as you know, there's a murder investigation going on here. That we received and believe we have very credible intelligence that causes us to be deeply concerned. And the RCMP have now initiated investigation. One of the things I need to be very careful about is not confirming or identifying either the sources of any information we're acting on or the evidence or the type of evidence that forms part of that investigation, because the outcome of that investigation is critically important to Canada. It's also important to our allies and to the world, because what we are talking about is potentially a violation of that international rules-based order that I spoke of. Mm-hmm. It has to be upheld, and I understand completely. Every country in the world has strong, trade interests in the Indo-Pacific region, as does Canada. But at the same time, our engagement in that region or in any place of the world has to be based on those rules, and Canada remains resolute in its commitment to uphold those rules. I'm not going to say anything that would in any way compromise the integrity of that investigation. It's just too important.
Well, let me end on this. How concerned are you at some of the measures, we can call them retaliation, that India is taking around the visas or other things here that would lead you to believe that India is perhaps not on the same page as you when it comes to, trying to get to the bottom of what happened, but also is very upset with the way the government has handled these allegations?
Well, Rosemary, let me be clear. First of all, I am concerned about the measures that they're taking because we have a very significant and important Indo-Canadian population in this country, people who, are connected to family and through business and other relationships to India. And so I recognize the impact that some of these measures may have. At the same time, it's another reason why I place such emphasis on the investigation that's taking place, that we be able to move beyond credible intelligence to evidence, strong evidence of exactly what happened, so that we and the Indian government can know the truth and have the facts, and then we then work together to resolve it in an appropriate way. And the only request we have made of our allies and of India is that they cooperate fully in that investigation, because its outcome is very important.
Minister Blair, thank you for making the time. I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Rosemary.